Contemptor Dreadnought was designed during the Great Crusade and for that era was the most powerful dreadnought available. It of course eventually branched off into the deredeo and leviathan dreadnoughts to be more specialized, but the Contemptor never lost its place in the Legionis Astartes. Hello everybody, my name is Spoons Rattling, and welcome to another video covering the Contemptor Dreadnought of the Legionis Astartes in the Horus Heresy. So the Contemptor Dreadnought, Talon, comes in at 175 points at base. The Contemptor has the sort of standard Dreadnought stat line. It moves 8 inches, so nice and speedy. Weapon skill and ballistic skill 5, so it's hitting on 2s at range and hitting on 3s most often in melee. It's strength 7, toughness 7, so very resilient. It's 6 wounds, initiative 4, 3 attacks, leadership 9, and a 2+ save. The Contemptor Dreadnought unit is simply composed of one Contemptor Dreadnought. The Wargear comes standard with a Gravis Power Fist with Combi Bolter. The Gravis Power Fist is strength 9, AP 2, and brutal 3, so that means for every attack you have to save 3 times. Combi Bolter is 24 inch range with strength 4, AP 5, rapid fire, and twin linked. The twin-linked Gravis Bolt Cannon is, of course, twin-linked, 36-inch range with strength 5, AP 4, and heavy 6, a decent enough weapon for killing things like Militia or Imperialis Solar Auxilia. The Automantic Deflector is, of course, a 5+ invulnerable save and converts any instant death to instead inflict D3 wounds. When this model dies, all models, both friendly and enemy, within D6 take an automatic strength 8 AP- hit, so very useful, as it keeps him very durable with that 2+, 5+ setup. In terms of special rules, he has Legionis Astartes X, so he benefits from your Legion rolls. Dreadnought Talon. When this unit is deployed, all models must be placed in unit coherency, but afterwards each operate independently and are not treated as a unit. And then it is a Dreadnought, so it is fearless, can move and shoot heavy weapons and ordnance, as well as charge afterwards, as if it counted as stationary. No unit without the Dreadnought keyword can ever join this unit, and weapons with the Fleshbane and Poisoned rule must reroll successful wound rolls against them, so they are very inefficient for the most part. It can shoot everything when it is shooting, as well as including during reactions, though do keep in mind it cannot split its weapons to multiple targets, so keep that in mind when equipping this thing, which we'll cover in just a moment. Just for 175 points, this is an exceptional loadout and base stat line, as it's just a very tough, very fast unit that's fearless, which is just great in general. So, of course, for 175 points, it really doesn't get much better than this, just given how efficient it is and how fast it is, along with almost being impossible to slow down outside of difficult terrain. Very few weapons will destroy these efficiently, so you have to keep that in mind. Moving on, we have to cover the options. So, the unit may include up to 2 additional Contemptor Dreadnoughts for 175 points each, and then any Legion Contemptor may swap its Gravis Bolt Cannon or Gravis Power Fist and Combi Bolter with one of the following: either another Gravis Bolt Cannon for free, which is the same as the one on the last sheet. The Gravis Melta Cannon is 24 inch range with strength 8, AP 1, Heavy 2, Armor Bane Melta, twin linked, and it's 5 points each. Heavy 2 means, AP 1 means it's superior armor penetrating, so +2 on damage rolls. Armor Bane means you, of course, get 2 armor penetration or reroll wounds against dreadnoughts, and Twin Link means you reroll your hit rolls. Gravis Autocannon is 48 inch range with strength 7, AP 4, Heavy 3, Rending 6+, and Twin Linked. Rending 6+, of course, means on a wound roll of a 6 you get AP 2, or against vehicles you get a D3 strength bonus to your piercing. The Gravis Plasma Cannon is 36 inch range with strength 7, AP 4, Heavy 1, Large Blast 5 inches, Breaching 4+, and Gets Hot. Gets Hot means on a 1 you may suffer a wound. Breaching 4+ means, of course, on a 4+ to wound you get AP 2. Large Blast 5 means use the 5-inch blast marker. The Conversion Beam Cannon is 20 points and has a few profiles. Up to 18 inch range, it's just strength 7, AP dash. Heavy 1, blast 3 inches, and blind. Blind means that enemies must take an initiative test or they fight and shoot at weapon skill and ballistic skill 1. And then from 18 to 42 inch range, it bumps to strength 9, AP 4. And then from 42 to 72, it jumps all the way to strength 12 and AP 1, making it an excellent anti-tank weapon. The Volkite Dual Culverin is 45 inch range with strength 6, AP 5, Heavy 6, Deflagrate, and Twin Linked. Deflagrate means for any unsaved wound you get to roll another wound, and Twin Linked means you reroll hit rolls, and that's 15 points each, so pretty pricey. The Kara's Assault Cannon is 24 inch range with strength 6, AP 4, Heavy 6, and Rending 6+, for 15 points. Solid enough anti-horde. Gravis Las Cannon is 48 inch range, strength 9, AP 2, Heavy 2, and Sunder, and that comes in at 20 points. The Gravis Power Fist with Inbolt Combi Bolter is free, and the Gravis Power Fist is the same as the last one. The Chain Fist and Inbolt Combi Bolter, though, of course, is a different weapon. The Chain Fist itself is strength 10, AP 2, Armor Bane Melee, and Murderous Strikes 5+. This is, of course, mainly for destroying tanks, but with Murderous Strikes, it does also do good work against other dreadnoughts. To make up for its lack of brutal, of course, it is rerolling wounds, and Murderous Strike means it'll be inflicting D3 damage for every 5+ against dreadnoughts, as well as getting instant death on infantry, but since you're strength 10, you'll be instant deathing most infantry anyways, so there's really not too much benefit there. In terms of loadout, though, most of these weapons are very good. Blind is an excellent special rule from the conversion beam cannons, Melt-A-Cannons are excellent for only 5 points, and the Chain Fist is an excellent melee weapon if you want to go full-on brawler build, which I think is completely reasonable given how this thing moves at 8 inches per turn. It's very fast and it can't be pinned, which is very useful. There is a lack of pinning weapons, but that's not a big deal. There is one more sheet of options. Any Legion Contemptor Dreadnought in the unit may replace its inbuilt Combi Bolter with one of the following: either a Heavy Flamer, which is template, strength 5, AP 4, and 5 points each. Then the Plasma Blaster is 18 inches, strength 7, AP 4, assault 2, reaching 4+ and gets hot. The inbuilt Graviton gun uses the Graviton Pulse as its strength characteristic, as you will. It has Concussive 1, which means that you can reduce enemies' initiative. And Haywire means that you get to inflict extra damage against vehicles, effectively. This comes in at 15 points, and Graviton Pulse means on a D6, enemies must roll under their strength on a D6, or they suffer a wound. The Graviton gun is simply just too expensive. Will do very little and is useless against vehicles, which makes Haywire a little strange. Inbuilt Melt-A-Gun is, of course, 12-inch range, strength 8, AP 1, assault 1, and armor bane Melta, for 15 points, very solid. And any Contemptor may take one of the following: either a Havoc Launcher, which is a top-mounted rocket launcher. It's 48-inch range, strength 5, AP 5, heavy 1, blast 3 inches, and twin-linked. For 10 points, this is a fine little extra flurry of attacks, especially good if you're going for an infantry-killing type build. The Helical Targeting Array is 10 points. You can activate it at the start of any of your turns or at the start of the battle if you're going second, and if you do until the end of the next turn, the model may not move, run, or use any reactions other than an Intercept or Overwatch. The controlling player may choose to use the Skyfire special rule, which allows you to use your normal weapon skill or ballistic skill when shooting planes. No model may take a Shrouded Damage Mitigation roll if you're being attacked by this unit, and this model may use the Interception reaction for free. This does not take a point from your reaction allotment, and does not allow this model to make more than one reaction, but does allow you to bypass the 3 reactions per phase restriction. A Legion Contemptor Talon of no more than one model may take a Dreadnought Drop Pod as a dedicated transport, doesn't take a Force Sword slot, but does count as an elite for all other rules purposes. Of course, I'd say the best weapons for your fists are the Melt-A-Guns, with the Plasma Blasters in a close second, though you could always just keep it cheap with Combi Bolters. I'd say it's worth the upgrade. I'd say either the Helical Targeting Array or Havoc Launcher are both maybes. If you're going for a turret build with, say, las cannons, then the Helical Targeting Array has its uses. Though at that point you're getting to a cost where you could just bring a deredeo instead, which is, of course, a better shooting unit. However, it still has its uses, and the Havoc Launcher is decent enough shooting. Moving on to buff options, the Tech Marine is the main one. He can heal your Dreadnought on a 5+, and given the Contemptor's general nature, being able to be built into anything, it's not unlikely that a Tech Marine could stance up next to a shooting Contemptor and keep it healed, though I'd say it's not necessary, as the Tech Marine can do a lot more than just that. I do also need to mention Rites of War. So Rites of War are something you can only get access to with basically having a certain rule in your list, and one of them is March of the Ancients. This is your Dreadnought Rite of War, and I will just come out right and say it, this is one of the most hated things in the Horus Heresy. If you play this, there is a very solid chance people won't want to play with you, but I can't not mention it in this video. This allows you to upgrade a single Talon of Contemptor Dreadnoughts with just one model to a character, and he becomes your Warlord for 30 points. And then you get to take 2 Contemptor Talons as your compulsory troop slots, and they get line. So you have your 6 Dreadnoughts with line and 1 Dreadnought who's a boosted character. This, of course, is crazy because Contemptor Dreadnoughts are already some of the best units in the game, so giving them line is simply insane. Having them fill out your compulsory troop slots is also insane. This basically takes them from just the best in almost every category to basically the best in every category. It lets you just spam an insane amount of Dreadnoughts. But since Dreadnoughts are just overpowered, I'll say it, I would not recommend using this. Unless you and your friend want to just smash, like, Rites of March of the Ancients versus March of the Ancients, two Dreadnought armies running into each other, that's cool. But if you're just having a casual game, I generally wouldn't bring this. It is very unfun to play against and just generally heinous to run. That about wraps my piece on March of the Ancients. Just keep that in mind before you go and have your, 25 Dreadnought list to make your opponent's life a living nightmare. Anyways, enough about that. Let's move on to our, of course, everyone's favorite section of the video, covering all 18 legions. Yippee! I'm being overly negative. I don't mind covering all the legions. Anyways, let's start off with the Loyalists, and of course, first up is the First Legion, the Dark Angels. Dreadwing means you're -1 to wound effectively by, like, plasma guns and things like that. Iron Wing gives you reroll 1s when targeting vehicles, which is nice if your weapons aren't twin-linked. White Scars gives you +1 to move, is excellent no matter what loadout you're running. Space Wolves gives you +1 weapon skill on the charge, which is mainly useful in making your opponents, like veterans, much worse at fighting Dreadnoughts, which is good because veterans with Thunderhammers are some of the most deadly units when it comes to dealing with Dreadnoughts. As, of course, they're brutal 2, they're strength 8, so they would crack your head open very quickly. But meaning they hit on 5s instead of on 4s is very nice, and you'll be hitting on 3s, so you'll crush more veterans before they get to attack you. The Imperial Fists give you +1 to hit with some of the ranged weapons, like the bolters and the assault cannon and your autocannon, which is niche but handy when it pops up. And the Blood Angels give you +1 to wound on the charge, which is mainly useful against Dreadnoughts, as you wound most infantry on 2, on 2s, but that is still very useful, as Dreadnought v Dreadnought is something that will happen frequently, and having a unit that is just better at destroying Dreadnoughts is very good, and means you will often win that duel. Even though, again, it's really only useful if your opponent is also bringing Dreadnoughts, which chances are they are, because everyone likes Dreadnoughts. They're really cool, and that's why I'm covering all of them. Next up, we have the next batch of Legions. The Iron Hands gives you -1 to wound when you're being shot at. Very useful, as las cannons can kill Dreadnoughts relatively effectively. Melta weapons also don't appreciate the debuff to their strength. Ultramarines is, of course, when you shoot, units nearby get +1 to hit when shooting the same thing. Contemptors already hit on 2s, so it's a great way to set off that. And even if you're running a melee build, you can just shoot your combi bolters at something to buff a nearby unit, which is very useful. Salamanders mean you're -1 to wound against things like Plasma, Volkite, you are -1 to wound from Meltas, Plasmas, Volkites, and Flamers, which is exceptional as the Contemptor is T7, so that makes Meltas less effective, Plasmas a lot less effective, and Volkites almost useless. Raven Guard gives you rerolling 1s to wound. It's great, as in most targets you'll be wounding on 2s in melee anyways, and even the units you're wounding on 3s, like Dreadnoughts, rerolling 1s is still exceptional. It means you are going to be converting most of your hits into wounds. As it is, it's a very, very solid special rule. Raven Guard are a very solid legion in my mind, even though I don't play them. I think they're very cool and very fun. Anyways, sorry, going on a little Raven Guard tangent. Maybe it's because I like to steal things from them as the Alpha Legion. Next up, we have the next batch of legions, which starts us off with the Emperor's Children on the Trader's End, which gives you +1 to initiative on the charge, which is excellent. It can really help stop things like mass rending weapons from being effective by clobbering enemies before they strike, as you'll be at initiative 5, and most enemies will be at initiative 4. Or even initiative 5 things like Power Lances would get hit pretty hard by this. The Iron Warriors gives you +1 to strength when shooting dreads, which is really nice for all of your weapons. And if you build it with such things like las cannons or melta cannons, you'll really appreciate it, because then you'll just be better at piercing armor. The Night Lords give you +1 to wound if you outnumber a target or if they're falling back or pinned, which is a little difficult for a Dreadnought to do. A unit falling back isn't unlikely, but he may want to just go fight something else. But if you're running Night Lords, you're probably bringing a lot of pinning units anyways, and he already wounds most things on 2s, and the things he doesn't can't be pinned anyways, so he doesn't really benefit from this that much. But again, the Contemptor is still an excellent unit. And I'm sure the Night Lords would appreciate having something this beefy with them. And of course, an extra model means another model that can help a squad outnumber some enemies. If it's like a big unit of Contakar, why not just drive that point home with a Contemptor Dreadnought, just to make sure you outnumber them. Next up, we have the next batch of Trader Legions, starting off with the World Eaters, who give you +1 attack, which is great because the Contemptor's melee weapons are all fantastic. I say all. Both of his melee weapons are fantastic. Of course, chain fists or power fists just really appreciate having the extra attack. That's usually going to mean an extra dead Terminator or an extra hull point destroyed. Next up, we have Death Guard, which means you basically get to move for free so long as you're in your deployment zone. It means you get to deploy very safely, and then you can just run through things like dangerous terrain and get into the fight just as fast. It's very nice. The Thousand Suns, you don't gain Prosperine Arcana, so not much specific here either, though there is a Thousand Suns specific Contemptor Dreadnought, that was a very long sentence, called the Osiren, which is something that I would need to cover on its own. The Sons of Horus is very nice because you get -1 strength when you're in combat from enemies, so things like Thunderhammers go from wounding you on 3s and to wounding you on 4s, which is very nice. The Word Bearers, I'd say, is pretty mediocre. Dreads can't fail morale, so they're not running, but winning combats by 1 wound is useful, I'd say, even if it is pretty niche, because Dreadnoughts will usually be the ones winning combat anyways, but I just don't think the Word Bearers Legion trait is that useful. Maybe I just haven't seen the light of the Word Bearers, so if I'm wrong, tell me down below. And finally, we have the last Legion, the Alpha Legion, of course, my personal Legion. Forcing people to get closer to be in melee, to get into Melter range is great, because it means it's easier for you to get into melee. And a funny bit of cheese, actually, if you're playing in March of the Ancients, and you really just want to rub that point home, you actually can give your Warlord Contemptor a Power Dagger, as it just keys off independent character. It just keys off character, which he's a character, because he gets upgraded to one, so you can give him a Power Dagger, which is really nice on mixed loadouts, because you'll still get your +1 attack, and is a pretty funny visual to model on your Dreadnought. Where would he put the knife? Would it be a bayonet, or would he have it like under his fist, or maybe on a knee pad or something? I don't know. That's for you to decide, but it is funny to do, even if, again, I don't recommend using March of the Ancients. It's not very fun, so don't do that. Well, it's fun for you. It's not fun for your opponent, so don't do it. Moving on, we have to cover the competition, which I've covered for the most part. The deredeo and the Leviathan both share pretty much the same thing, just reversed. If you want pure melee muscle, then the Leviathan is pretty hard to beat with its slightly superior melee weapons. And if you want pure shooting, the deredeo outcompetes it, in my opinion. But the thing is, the Contemptor still does those things exceptionally and can do both of them at the same time. Because you could give it like a Melta Cannon, which makes it excellent ranged anti-fire power, or anti-tank firepower, and then a Power Fist, which makes it great at crunching up things like Terminators. Or you could go, with Conversion Beamers, which allows it to be a pseudo-buffing unit in a way by blinding enemies. There's a lot that the Contemptor can do that these guys can't do, but if you're on the far end of the extremes, then it's hard to argue against the others. Mainly the deredeo, because if you upgrade a Contemptor to have all the same firepower bonuses that a deredeo does, the price is about the same, so you're kind of just better off getting a deredeo at that point. The Leviathan costs significantly more, about 100 points more. So if you need just melee on the budget, this guy does that exceptionally, but it does make sense why the Leviathan costs so much more. He's got more wounds, more toughness, though a little slower, but he's harder to slow down. Regardless, all of these units are exceptional, and you can run them in concert to have a very effective fighting force. Contemptor can be your generalist, your Leviathan can be your melee, and your deredeo can have the biggest guns to blow things up from across the board to make a very effective triangle offensive, if you will. Each side representing a different part of your battle plan, which is definitely something you could do, but maybe don't spam them, because, again, Dreadnoughts are very scary and can be very unfun to play against. So just keep that in mind. Anyways, we're done with the competition section. It's time to go on to our best use section. And the Contemptor is sort of the typifying Dreadnought of, how insane Dreadnoughts are. It has excellent durability, speed, and damage. Pretty much all of its weapons are good, and even just its basic melee, shooting combo isn't bad by any means. If you can gear it up for anything. If you want more horde clearing, plasma cannons are great for that. If you want to clear things like militia, then bolt cannons or assault cannons are good. The auto cannon's a good general purpose weapon. Las cannon's a very solid anti-tank. The Melta Cannon is excellent. For only 5 points, it's one of the better anti-tank weapons, in my opinion. And honestly, if you have 2 Melta Cannons and you jump out of a drop pod, that's an excellent little way to really blow up your opponent. And even covering the other ones, the Conversion Beamers Blind is one of the best special rules in the game, in my opinion. And in your fists, whether it's plasmas, bolters, or Melta, I think they're all very good. Melta for softening up vehicles, Plasma for blowing up space marines. Overall, there's really not much more I can say about the Contemptor. It does everything in the game, and it does everything in the game well. It doesn't have pinning, I guess, but when it can just blow up most infantry anyways, it doesn't really need pinning because there won't be any infantry left to pin. Its melee is exceptional. It can rip apart just about anything from a rhino to even Imperial Knights. They fight really well. They're just really exceptional. So just make sure to bring one, but just don't spam them because again, masked up Dreads is just really unfun to play against, and that's my public service announcement. I've been Spoons Rattling. Hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you all next time.